Hey, sorry to interrupt whatever you're doing out there, but we'd like to inform you that this is another edition of the ETPU Sportsnet Coaches Show. I'm Kenneth the K-Rock Klein, but who's asking? You already know that. And of course, every week we interview a coach by a pick of a name out of a hat or a lottery pick, or we spin the wheel to see who gets to be the person sitting on the other side. And this week, we actually had the head cross-country coach, Natalie Bach-Prather. Coach Prather, how are you doing?
Good to be here today.
Very good. Obviously, I'm sure you're excited to be here as well. A common word that you like to use is excited, of course. But anyways, Coach, you're already 2 meets into the season already. So just kind of give us in full detail of things that have been going on and how well your team's been competing.
Well, we started off a little bit slow, but that's all right. Very hot outside, so it's affected our training a little bit, but nothing we can't handle. I've laid on a lot of miles at the beginning part of the season, so we switched up a few things training-wise, which seems like it's a slow start, but I think we're going to come around when we need to. The other thing is we have a lot of freshmen, which means a lot of these kids have not competed at, well, obviously at this level, but a lot of them come from small schools too. So 5K, a couple of them have never done a 5K up until Laterno. So that's kind of an eye-opener, especially when we get to these workouts. Some have not run more than 2 miles, and I'm asking them to run 10. So I think it's been a little bit of a shell shock at first, but we are coming along, and I think that we're going to get where we need to go.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that because obviously you're starting the season and we're dealing with some hot and humid temperatures. Like when you're dealing with a situation where it's a 90-degree or sometimes 100-degree weather out there, how do you handle training to make sure that your athletes continue to get the work in, but also to make sure they don't get heat stroke or anything?
Yeah, well, our important workouts are the ones that we do on Monday and Wednesday mornings, and we always do that before the sun comes up so we can get some real work done. And then on our anytime when we have an afternoon workout that's really hot outside, it's miles, it's getting in miles, and typically if it's depending on the temperature, we'll stay close to campus or have a spot that we circle around or come back to get water, regular water breaks and cool towels. So we do monitor that quite a bit, and sometimes that slows down our progress a little bit at the beginning because we're fighting the heat more than we are the miles. But I think that once we have a break in the weather, if that ever comes, then we're going to start seeing some cool results.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But anyway, looking at the runners you have so far, obviously, on the women's side, of course, I'm continuing to see Elizabeth Rodriguez, being a top as well. But another name, like a newcomer on your team, Samantha Garcia, is really continuing to she's been your top runner on the female side for the past 2 meets. And of course, you talked about how your freshmen kind of had a little reality moment when they realized that instead of going from this mileage, they need to go up to this mileage. But just talk about how they've been able to adjust specifically on your women's and men's side.
Our women's side, they came in. I probably have the most mentally tough group of women I've ever coached for women's cross country. It's pretty cool to see. So even though they're hitting a lot of challenges, they are going at it with the right attitude. And of course, Samantha came in strong. She came in stronger anyway because she did some powerlifting in high school, actually. A lot of powerlifting. She was very good. She went to state. But she also got in all the summer mileage. And that's really hard to do as a freshman. You're not sure what it's going to be like in college, and you don't quite understand the importance of the summer mileage. And she did, and she accomplished all of it. So she's come in a little bit ahead of herself. Our guys, I know a lot of our guys, our returners, a lot of them worked a lot this summer, so it wasn't an ideal training session, but they also came in with a much better mindset. They knew what we needed to do. They knew what we need to tackle. They knew they're coming in a little bit behind, but we all have the right mindset. So once again, I think that's going to pay off in the end.
Absolutely, Coach. And, this past week, of course, you were at UT Tyler, and again, it had another one of those exciting finishes where it was 1 second differential, but obviously with Mac Broussard, who is a high revved up body machine, or high power revved up body machine, unless you want to call him that, I don't know. But coming in a second, of course, he continues to amaze, and he earned himself another ASC Runner of the Week award as well, his 5th one on the season. I mean, with him, it just continues to get better and better. Does he have his mindset of I had such a great year last year, but I know I can be better and better?
Absolutely. That's what's really unique about Mac is he does not settle. He doesn't settle for his performances or for his accolades of what happened last year. he has bigger goals, and he keeps saying, I want to achieve this, I want to go bigger, I want to go bigger. He says, I know I can push, he knows he can push himself a lot harder. And so with him, I know that loss right at the finish line was disappointing, but we are doing something with him a little bit differently. And the experiment is working. He's very tired. We put on a lot of miles, but his race plan was executed perfectly. So I'm not worried about him. And with his mindset of needing to go further and knowing he can, that's the thing, is I can have confidence in him, but he's got to have confidence in himself, and that he does not lack.
Even if it means running 18 miles in a day that you probably doesn't need to run, but I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, Coach, so this week, of course, you're off because you have your next meet up in Rhodes College as well. And just talking about, your plans for the bye week as well, you want to rest your guys up, but also, kind of have them realize that, hey, we're going to be running soon. So just talk about, bye week plans, is there going to be a lot of rest, or are you going to get some work in?
It will be a really heavy training week, actually. We'll probably go hard till about Wednesday of next week. So bye week is always a great break from racing to be able to get training. Because, when you're racing, you got to take it easy the day before, and then you race and you got to recover, and then the next day you're stretching and recovering and trying to get miles. Here, we don't have that 3-day break. Here, we're able to go straight for about 6 or 7 days. So I'm excited because I think this bye week with the training segment that we have coming up is really going to help them be prepared for Rhodes, which is going to be the guys' first 8K and the girls' first 6K, but they're going to be prepared for it after what they have coming up next.
Absolutely. And, speaking of the schedule, of course, it kind of feels like there's a similar flow with the schedule. Like your first meet's out at Laterno, second one maybe at Tyler. This is, of course, the third week as well, probably the longest road trip you take as well, and then you might have your home meet in there. When you know the schedule in the back of your head, and you kind of might do it on a year-to-year basis, sometimes you might add a new event as well. Does that kind of give you a better sense of how you prepare your athletes to run?
For sure. I never want to give them an 8K coming right out of the gate, week one. So we're always trying to find the 5K or the 2-mile race. And, I try to make sure that we have a break. I don't want to ever race more than 2 weeks in a row because we need that bye week for very specific purposes. So yeah, that's always in the planning behind my head.
Absolutely, Coach. And one final question, of course. You and I both know that cross country is a sport technically, but there might be those that think of cross country and say, well, it's just people running on open plains or so. I mean, what's the point behind that and all of that? But from your perspective, obviously, as someone who's ran in cross country, ran marathons, and in track as well, like for anyone that might be, questioning that, could you kind of explain from your own words, what is it about cross country that does in fact make it a sport?
Well, it's the mental aspect. I mean, anyone can learn how to run, but how you go about doing that and preserving your body. I mean, I think the other day we had an evening run that was 12 miles and it was 101 degrees. So it's not, most people are going to do that just for fun. And it's the way you monitor your body and you ask it to go harder and faster. When we do splits, when we have like mile repeats, I'm asking them to hit a very specific pace, but I don't give them a flat course. I find something with hills at very strategic moments that are helping build up that stamina for race day. So there's actually a lot more tactical thinking that goes on in running than people realize. It's just, from the outside you're looking and you just see them running, but this past weekend every single athlete had a very specific race plan that they had to do, and I told them, I said it didn't matter what anyone else was doing, like it was beside the point. They needed to execute their race plan, pick up at certain points, and then they did that, which I was really pleased with because then we started seeing better results overall.
Absolutely, Coach. All right, Coach Prather, once again, thanks for joining us, and we wish you, well, obviously, best of luck with your bye week, and then next week when you run out at Rhodes as well. That concludes things with Coach Prather for this time, and you'll see her and another coach on the ETBU Coaches Show, and hopefully you enjoy this one, and we will see you next time on the ETBU Sportsnet.